Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Critical Infrastructure Innovation Practice Group. I'm very happy to have you here. Beatrice, can you share your screen, please?
Yeah, sorry, I need to all right, yes, let me share here.
Thank you.
Right.
So welcome. Let's just first, Beatrice, it's not in presentation mode.
About this. Okay.
Yes, perfect. So welcome, everyone. Very happy to have you all here. Let's just first go through a few practicalities and the agenda before we kick it off properly. Next slide, please. So first to go through a few technical considerations. So please keep your mic muted while we have our presentations, and unmute whenever you want to contribute. And please turn on your camera. It's much nicer to see you when you speak. And also please use the Zoom engagement tools. So raise your hand, and you can use the chat to raise any questions. And yeah. Also, please rename yourself to put your organization and your region so we know where you're coming from. For today's agenda, so we have a quick welcome and the introductions. Then we have a presentation from Gorinska region from Slovenia. Following their presentation, we will have a plenary discussion with some experts that came to join us. After that, we decided to not have breakout rooms, but have a discussion all together in the plenary. After that, with discussion, we're going to think of a few key takeaways from the discussion we have, and then we have a quick survey for you and closure. Also, we're going to have some cartoon outputs based on this session. Unfortunately, the cartoonist couldn't join us in person, but we're recording the session, and she's going to look through the recording and create some cartoons based on what we speak about. The two that you see here have been made during different sessions, one on behavioral change and the other on data and knowledge. So, for example, the one with behavioral change, it came out of the discussions that behavioral change can be really scary. And then with the flood risk data, it shows how people view data when they have different perspectives. And now I'll pass it over to Sylvia just to say a few words about these innovation practice groups.
Thanks a lot, Anka, and welcome everybody to today's session. So for those that are not familiar, Innovation Practice Group are part of the Pathway to Resilience program, where we are working with 39 European regions to support them in developing their climate adaptation plan. The Innovation Practice Group are a space to learn, to share with peers, and the topic are guided by the regional challenges and needs, and regional case study is what we're gonna hear today. They're focusing on four main things. The first is to showcase best practices, what we're doing today. The second one is to co-develop plan and ideas, so to have this co-creation moment. The third one is to share expertise, to exchange knowledge and on enabling condition and key community system. And the last but not least, to have a broader perspective and gain a wider view of what are regional challenges. We have three key objectives. The first one is to connect the region with the sources of knowledge and expertise. So we're going to have a few experts also coming in today on the conversation to create communities of innovative adaptation practitioners across Europe. And last but not least, to provide additional knowledge exchange opportunity to you all. Next slide, please. Thank you. So today we're starting with the Innovation Practice Group week 2. We had the first week at the beginning of March, where we started yesterday, which is an interesting session. This Innovation Practice Group week 2, we're going to have another one coming up later in autumn, and then we're going to have a meeting with the regions that are participating in the program at the beginning of next year. All the things that you're going to hear during the Innovation Practice Group are coming from regional experiences. And I think that I'm happy now to pass the floor to Beatrice, that is going to guide us through. Oh, probably there's one more slide on the mirror board now that I'm thinking. Yes. So last but not least, what we're doing is to collect all the inputs in one single place. So you can save the link that we're gonna share in the chat, because this is gonna be the place where we're going to collect all material from the innovation practice group. It's a mirror board that is gonna stay open for you all even after the session. In the mirror board, you will find four main sections. The top bar is where we're proposing the calendar for the entire week of the innovation practice group. So you will find all the registration link. In the content session, you can find all the different activities that we're going to run through today's session. In the wall of resources, you can find all relevant resources regarding the topic of the innovation practice group. That could be like a scientific paper, can be a regional case study, specific tools or template that can be relevant for the topic. And in the last session on the bottom part, you can find the material from the related innovation practice group. So like the presentation from the speaker and any other things that are going to be shared during the session itself. And I think this was my last slide.
Thank you. Thank you, Silvia.
Yeah,
Right. So welcome all to the IPG on critical infrastructure. Right. So I don't want to say obvious things, but I would like to reiterate what critical infrastructure is according to the Commission of the European Communities. So critical infrastructure are physical and information technology facilities, network services, and assets that if disrupted or destroyed would have serious impact. So basically they would impair the functioning of our society. And this is why critical infrastructure are so important. Not only, but recent disruption has shown us that critical infrastructure are dependent on each other. And therefore, every disruption that happens in one infrastructure, in one asset, has some ripple effects on all the other infrastructure. And I like to use this picture to showcase how different infrastructure networks, in this case, are dependent on each other. So it's very important to protect them and to avoid that infrastructure fail in the first place. So today's session is about improving flash flood preparedness in the Gorenjka region in Slovenia. So I would like to introduce now the speaker from the Gorenjka region, which is beautiful. As you can see here, is a region which attracts a lot of tourists, but which suffered very bad floods in 2023. So with us today, we have Natasha Beltran. Natasha is an environmental management expert skilled in public participation and strategic communication. She worked with public institutions and NGOs alike. She collaborated with the Slovenian Government Office for Climate Change, the United Nations Development Programme, and other Slovenian agencies and international agencies. Since 2020, she is leading the implementation of the financial participation approach in Basra, Iraq, drafted this financial participation approach and implemented it. She actively participated in several projects related to national policies, rural developments, and reducing the ecological footprint of Slovenia. So Natasha, I leave the floor to you, and please feel free to complete your introduction as you see fit.
Beatrice, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Natasha Beltran. As introduced, I come from Slovenia. Among the things that have been told about me, I've also been working in last 2 years very intensively with 2 regions in Slovenia, supporting them in preparation of their climate adaptation strategies. The region that I will talk about today is continuing these efforts, where I'm also involved in preparing their action plan within Pathways to Resilience project. So if you allow me, I would start sharing my screen and present you our case study. I don't know if you see it in presentation mode.
Not yet.
Okay, let me try again. Yes. So,
Yeah, now it's perfect.
okay. So, welcome everybody to Slovenia and Gorinska case study. So just to point out where we are, our country is not very big, but still very important for us. We are bordering on to Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Croatia. We are at the beginning of the Adriatic Sea, which is part of the bigger Mediterranean region. So this is Slovenia. Now, Gorinska is a part of Slovenia, very important part, also bordering to Austria, has a big portion of Julian Alps and mountainous regions, which, as you will see later, has a big impact on how the rivers flow in this region. As I mentioned, within Gorinska region, just this year, the regional adaptation strategy has been adopted, which identified 10 sectors, priority sectors addressing climate adaptation. One of those sectors were extreme weather events and protection against natural disasters. This is the sector that has to do with today's topic. What you see on the picture are all the municipalities within the region. What I want to say is that we went and we are still going through a strong participatory process to include all municipalities in a decision making, because the particularity of Slovenia is, being a country of 2 million people, that we only have national and local governance. There is no regional governance, which, as you will see later, has a great impact on how we deal with critical infrastructure. So, just a quick look at our strategy. The sector of protection against natural disasters and extreme weather events identified 5 main measures: strengthening crisis management, training, awareness rising to respond to these events, information and awareness rising, meaning 24 hours, 72-hour, etc. warning system for the inhabitants, connecting and engaging stakeholders is a very strong prerequisite, and improving civil protection's response to natural disasters. These were the 5 areas that were identified through a workshop with a lot of professionals that see that this is where we need to strengthen our efforts. So in August 2023, the whole country was hit by an enormous flood event, where a lot of material and financial damage happened, not a lot of casualties, which actually indicated that our response system was good. However, there is always room to improvement. And after this huge flood event, the whole country was really shaken by the consequences, and there was a disruption in the system, which made it very clear that flood resilience is something that the whole country will need to address very thoroughly in the coming years. And this is what is actually happening right now at many levels. Now, after the flood, the mobilization of the whole country did happen. The ministries got engaged. Slovenia got a big loan from European Union to manage flood resilience. And here you just see the main river that is a case study that we are presenting today, which is Selška Sora, where a lot of measures have been implemented. Mainly financed or co-financed through the European Union's Cohesion Fund. What has been done is described here. I will name but a few. So a lot of reconstruction and construction, deepening, leveling the riverbed gradient, construction of a sediment retention basin, construction of a high water embankment, dry retention dam, etc. What I would like to strengthen here is that these are mainly gray infrastructure measures, which were to much of extent necessary because we are talking about torrential flows. So narrow area, river doesn't have much space to flow, and when the flood happens, it happens very fast. However, we do miss nature-based solutions to this extent, and this is something that I will ask for discussion later, how to introduce in this kind of environment nature-based solutions. Now, how the early warning system in Slovenia works. National Environmental Agency is monitoring the weather prognosis, or they actually make them. They're also responsible for climate projections, and they have divided the whole Slovenia in all these regions. And we are talking about the region of this river Sora. What happens is, this is, for example, forecast for today, where the whole Slovenia is covered in green, and it says there is no particularities, basically no danger of flooding. They have a system of, if there is a yellow color, that means there is some overflowing of rivers happening. Orange color means there is flood, and red means that there is a major flood happening. We also very clearly distinguish between torrential floods and let's say normal floods because of the typical terrain in Slovenia. So on the 4th of August, when the floods happened, they issued an orange alarm. So which means that people knew something serious might happen. However, the consequences were even higher. The result was that the early warning system still in 2024 and 23 is that civil protection commanders regularly monitored flows and warnings based on the maps that you saw. This was publicly available information. Warnings were used mainly at the regional level, but forecasts were not accurate enough for the area of Gorenjska, which needed, due to the nature of rivers, more precise information of what could happen. So the project that I'm introducing now is working in this direction. So they work together with Civil Protection and National Environmental Agency, and they created a special form or a questionnaire for notifying the civil protection of what can happen. So in the event of increased limit values of water levels and flows, the National Environmental Agency informs civil protection commanders that the values have been exceeded, particularly and more specifically for these areas. And this gives civil protection more time to prepare, so to have even better response to forecasts that are available are for 3 periods. So 0 to 1 day, 2 days, and 3 days. So this gives them more time to, first of all, inspect the area, what is the real life situation, how to respond, and which other services to notify. I think the system was already quite good in place, but this project is testing possibilities to make it even more accurate and faster. If this works, there is high possibility that it will be used for the whole country. It is very important to say that they actually went through quite a participative process to get this data. So they made interviews with civil protection commanders who monitor these flows. They engaged the key stakeholders in this process to improve the whole system. So here is a graphical representation. Intense rainfall exceeded stream flow threshold, that there is an automatic notification so that they can respond faster. So these dedicated hydrological forecasts were developed specifically for this area, and they reflect post-flood riverbed changes after the big floods because they have been changed a lot. They include new threshold values, so the whole data system was updated, and through this, the forecasts are more precise and more accurate. In turn, they support quicker and better informed decisions by civil protection teams. What remains, the challenges that do remain is what I mentioned before. So how to include nature-based solutions within the system that is based on gray infrastructure for flood resilience. This is something that I would like to open for discussion because it has been a discussion in Slovenia, but there's very few people who actually defend nature-based solutions, and the general implementation of gray infrastructure is dominating this area. So if we can have a discussion on this, that would be great. Now, the other thing which I think is important is how to prioritize financing nature-based solutions for critical infrastructure that ensure climate flood resilience. So within the existing financial sources, I think this could be one of the leverage points to intervene in this system. And C is I would love to open a discussion on multi-level governance that ensures critical infrastructure for flood resilience. As I mentioned, Slovenia has only national and local governance. We are trying to work at the regional level to improve, in general, resilience to climate change, but the organizations that work at the regional level don't have a decision-making power. So we have regional development agencies and regional energy agency that they do form a working group on adaptation in the region. This is the group responsible to prepare climate adaptation strategy and now climate adaptation action plan. However, whatever this group does and creates has to go through the municipality council, where every municipality needs to confirm and adopt the work of this group. So it is highly participatory process, but at the same time challenging in making decisions. Then we have, of course, the national government, which took over the management of critical infrastructure per se, and is trying to make some efforts to include local communities into decision making. It was partially successful in some regions and in others less. So we would be very happy to hear experiences from other regions with similar challenges. This was my introduction to the discussion. I thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for your presentation. Very interesting. So now there will be a plenary discussion involving 3 main experts in each one of the topic that Natasha has highlighted as being a challenge in her case study. So let me introduce them to you. Alexandra Goldis. Alexandra currently works at Climate Kick, which is a climate and innovation agency and community established by the European Commission. Climate Kick roles is to orchestrate suites of solutions and learnings to make systems change happen at pace and scale. Alexandra's experience is in creating policy instruments that are sensitive and relevant to local context and what is currently happening in supply chains. For the last 4 years, she has been working with the extremely ambitious climate governments of Slovenia, where she's supporting the implementation of a program to transform the economy towards a circular and regenerative one. Alexandra tries to test different ways to better coordinate different policy layers and focus on what actually neutralizes the so-called implementation loop. That is, the feeling that there is a huge gap between what we have in our strategic plans and what is actually happening. So as you might have understood from her bio, Alexandra is our expert on governance. So hi, Alexandra.
Hi, and sorry that my bio was so long. I thought, Beatrice, that you will cut something. And
Not a problem.
Natasha, that was a huge pleasure for me because I'm spending so much time with ministries, and I'm always so curious
Alexandra, it
what is
might be
happening
me.
on the local level. So that was a huge pleasure for me. Thank you for that intro.
All right.
My comment to the
welcome.
presentation, Natasha? No, I
Apologies,
think that my
don't know.
internet could be weak here.
Sorry,
Can you hear
Alexandra.
me?
Alexandra, sorry, can you hear us? Olga, can you hear us?
Okay, maybe Alexandra's internet is not super stable. Let me introduce the next expert. She's Anya. So Anya works for Global Infrastructure Basel on the infrastructure and nature pillar, where she focused on sustainable finance. So as you can guess, she's our expert on sustainable finance. She brings experience in climate finance from the Global Climate Partnership Fund, a leading impact investor. She supported financial institutions in South America, Caucasus, Asia, and East Africa, driving investment into climate mitigation projects, in particular renewable energy, energy efficiency, and clean mobility. Prior to that, she gained experience in the Swiss banking sectors and completed a bachelor degree in economics and finance. So Anya, are you with us?
Yes.
Thank you
Hello,
very much
everyone.
for supporting us.
Thank you.
Right. Right. And our last expert, or last but not least, is Tabea. Tabea also works for Global Infrastructure Basel as part of the Infrastructure Nature team, where she focuses on nature-based solutions. Prior to joining Global Infrastructure Basel, she worked in London in PwC, UK Sustainability and Climate Change Consulting team, focusing on early-stage climate technologies and climate finance. Before moving to the UK, she worked for SwissNext, a Swiss technology and innovation outpost in San Francisco on innovation and tech policy programs. So hi, Tabea. Thank you for being with us.
Hello.
Right, so I would like now to open the door for the plenary discussion. So I would like to invite perhaps first I will invite the audience on whether you have comments on the case studies and the 3 challenges identified by Natasha on implementing nature-based solution to protect against floods, how to mobilize the finance to finance this nature-based solution, and on the multi-level governance systems. Slovenia has quite a peculiar governance systems. I wonder how it works in other regions. So if anybody would like to share their experience, I would invite them to speak. Otherwise, I don't know. Maybe while we gather our thoughts together, Tabea or Anya, or maybe I'll start with Tabea on the nature-based solution part. If you have a reflection or something that inspired you doing this case study.
So I think generally regions share your sentiment, Natasha, that it is very difficult to make the case for nature-based solutions. And generally what we see is that whilst from a theoretical perspective, we can make the case for the benefits of NBS, there are a few issues that we run into when we want to make the case. So like one of them is convincing stakeholders, thinking about getting the right people together, which means you need the experts from the technical side, and it has been implemented a lot, but it's also changing now with climate change and the requirements for that. So I think there's like a lot of technical expertise needed. And the other thing is, I guess getting the financing, which Anya can speak to about more. But also another thing which we've heard a lot is just there is monitoring data available from other case studies. And there is evidence that nature-based solutions work and bring the benefits, but generally the implementation horizons for these sort of solutions are so long that you really need to bring a very strong case to make sure that stakeholders really understand what these things can bring, because with grey infrastructure you have the benefits when it's been built. And I think that is generally some of the issues we run into. So maybe let's start with that.
What about maintenance? Because this is also what we hear very often. I don't know, I mean, you can respond to this, but that nature-based solution need more maintenance than gray infrastructure, which is like built, stands, and operates. Whereas you need to maintain nature-based solutions, I mean, green infrastructure generally.
I think in general, I think it's very difficult to generalize across all nature-based solutions. But yes, of course, there needs to be some sort of maintenance. Sometimes the maintenance is quite low. But what we found a lot is that the general cost, the first cost to actually implement, is lower than with gray infrastructure. So that's also something, and then you can make an economic case for it, that even with higher maintenance costs and operational costs, the overall capex and opex are then lower. But I think that's super dependent on what you actually are trying to implement.
Well, in our case, one of the main challenges is space. So from what I understand, that also nature-based solutions require more space. Like if you want to let river flow over its current borders and flood, you need to dedicate space to that. And there we crash against several interests that are in spatial planning in general. So where do you allow to build is just one of the questions. It's where you allowed fields to be, and can you manage them in a way that they're sometimes flooded or not? Is there, settlement already in the flood area that needs to be now removed, or how you manage this? This, I think, is for me, how I see it, one of the main challenges. All the interests that various groups of people have over the same area and the rights to this area is what I find is very challenging.
Yeah, 100%, and I fully echo your sentiments. We're working with a case study. So I'm based in Switzerland, and just across the border, we're working with a case study in France. And they have exactly that issue, that some parts of the river they're targeting, they just can't do anything about it because you have all those properties are in private possession. But then it's really about finding out where are the parts where you can change something, and are you able to build something further upstream than like a retention pond? So further downstream where you have all those property issues, you then have already taken out some of the main issues because you've implemented something upstream. But yeah, it's maybe
Okay.
Alexandra could share a bit more about her experience with sort of how to align the different stakeholders from a governance perspective. And
Sorry, ladies. I thought that if I'm at the university, there will be a proper internet. It's better right now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm super happy. I was speaking for 1 minute, telling Natasha that I was extremely happy to listen to her presentation because I'm looking at Slovenia from the national level. So I spent last 4 years mainly talking with ministries, and it's extremely interesting that at the beginning they are not so willing to look at the local level, and then when we have to activate something and to really prove that there will be some impact, they are looking for partners from the local level. When I was preparing for that session, of course, I also reach out to our colleagues from 2 ministries, which could be helpful in your case, Natasha. So of course, Ministry of Climate and Ministry of National Resources. I was thinking that Ministry of Infrastructure could be helpful here, but then colleagues from the Ministry of Climate told me, no, that should be the Ministry of National Resources. So the first step is to really understand the division of the task between ministries. And in any country case, it's not so obvious that you could think that this is that ministry, but it's not like this. And then you have to find a proper department, which is also not so obvious. So without having like a good agent inside the national government, spending time in navigating with whom we should talk about different stuff is quite complicated. But then my colleague from the Ministry of the Public Administration, so the person who is extremely interested in the multi-governance model, so the model which is fashionable in European Union for many years, so everyone is talking about that, but when we are thinking how to do it practically, it's more complicated. So the lady from the Ministry of Public Administration, she told me that lately, I think that it was the end of 2024, the Ministry of Climate and the Association of Municipalities, there is an organization in Slovenia who is like connecting all the municipalities. They signed an agreement to establish climate office for municipalities inside Ministry of Climate. Sorry, I should always tell you which ministry we are talking about. So she told me this topic of finding investments and coordinate actions in using nature-based solutions in Slovenia regions should start with connecting with that newly established office, or this is exactly the English name of that entity inside the ministry. But the problem is that they are not having a big budget. So this office can help us in dealing with the challenge I was talking at the beginning. So navigation through the national level to understand with whom we should talk with, and also to elaborate what kind of demand we are having as a local authority, like what we are looking for. And when I was listening to Natasha, I was quite impressed. Like you are super advanced. You are asking for very concrete stuff. And then the second step after connecting with this entry point, and in Slovenia, apparently we are having that entry point, and Natasha has to check if that office is really working effectively or not. The key challenge in multi-government work is to have a proper conversation about funds. And correct me, Natasha, if that is your case. So there is no better topic to coordinate between different stakeholders in the system by jointly thinking how we can find the proper money. And I located not places, but funds, which are of course coordinated by the ministry. So from the national level. One is new LIFE project called Life for Adapt. Of course, I was searching through nature-based solutions inside that project, and this project is quite big. So I think that they are having around 30 millions, and they are looking for implementation on the local level. But if there is no concrete indication of the nature-based solutions, you need collaboration with the ministry responsible for the project to convince them why that concrete solution is needed for us. And I think that you have very strong mandate and a lot of data why it will be good to do that. So the second step is after identifying the proper stakeholders on the national level, finding the proper fund they have or they can help you with. There is also the issue which is in multi-level governance still challenging. So not only coming from one level to another, so from national to local, but also to nicely coordinate stakeholders on the same level which we need to work on our topic. And in that case, it's a proper coordination between Ministry of Climate, Ministry of Natural Resources, and maybe potentially also Ministry of Public Administration, because they are in Slovenia. I'm talking about how government and ministry settings looks in Slovenia. In every country is differently, but sometimes it's good to have another third-party ministry, like Ministry of Public Administration. If we recognize that they are interested in what we are doing, they could be like a good supporter for our collaboration between different national entities. So when I was looking for options for you for that concrete challenge, I was thinking about this LIFE project, and also one of the colleagues from other ministry told me about this classical climate fund. So the climate fund is, I'm smiling because climate fund is exactly the fund we as Climate Kick are getting money for our big systemic project, a deep demonstration, and that fund could be quite flexible and interested for the actions you are having in your plan. Of course, here also we, as I know this program right now, there is no special focus on nature-based solutions, but also Slovenia. As I know, some of the stakeholders coming from the science and innovation sector, you're quite good in nature-based solutions. There is quite a quite interesting center, I think that in Primorska, which is specialized in building designing nature-based solutions in construction. So connecting this resource you are having nationally with existing source available on the national fund, and maybe using also this new body established in the Ministry of Climate, so the office to collaborate with municipalities. It sounds like a proper network of stakeholders and network of resources that you could have a proper discussion to secure not only money, but also support, human support and institutional support for what you are planning to do. So this is in the nutshell what I found on the national level with our stakeholders. But I would be very happy to think more how to support your process, especially that all of the stakeholders from the national level, when I asked them the question when preparing for the session, they were like, oh, that's very interesting. Gorańska is very advanced. So let us know what will be the result of the session. So there is at least initial openness, but Natasha, you're from Slovenia, so you know the reality. It's the key challenge in multi-level governance process, which you need right now, is to really have also like a long-term vision between all the stakeholders, what they are achieving through that cross levels collaboration. And we are having the deep demo project till the end of 2025, so this year, and we will be very happy to, if you need to, also help the support and the securing the national level for everything what you are trying to do. So we can play this orchestrating role if you will need that. Thank you so much, and I hope that I was clear and you could hear me.
Thank you, Alexandra. If you allow me to respond to this. So, yes, I'm very well aware of Slovenian structures. We are collaborating closely with the Ministry of Environment and Energy, who are supporting the regions in preparing their adaptation strategies. I have been part of the team that prepared the LIFE project, so I'm very well aware of its contents. I'm also collaborating with the Climate Office and Association of Towns and Municipalities of Slovenia. So there is a lot of things happening in Slovenia right now. We have a proposal of a new climate law that didn't go through yet, but it will change and improve the situation regarding climate adaptation at many levels, the same as this LIFE project. This all holds, but the system, the way it functions, that is the other ministry for natural resources. And as you know, working in Slovenia, collaboration between ministries can be a challenge. So the climate adaptation or resilience to floods is divided into ministries. So you don't only have multi-level governance, you have intra-level governance between the ministries that share the same sector. And it's crucial that they work together well. What is happening this year is that the Ministry of Environment is starting to prepare national adaptation strategy, where they have to work basically with all other ministries and sectors included in this. So I'm hoping that there will be strengthening in this collaboration. But the challenges still remain. I'm closely monitoring also Climate Fund. I know what finances will be approximately available in the future. So this is all. I know how the situation is in Slovenia, so the challenges that I'm bringing out are still existing. And I'm really looking forward to hear, if maybe we can have a talk later of how further collaboration with the other ministry could happen that made progress in including municipalities to certain level. It's just that in adaptation, you need to make planning and decisions at least at regional level. You cannot let it to the local level alone. And this is something that I wanted to ask other regions if they have a response to this. Now, I saw a response for afforestation regarding flood resilience. This is a challenge that we're trying to address now. I will just give an example that you see how things function in Slovenia. For example, forestry in Slovenia is one of the best developed in Europe. So we have close to nature forestry, which is a standard that the rest of Europe is kind of trying to follow. For example, there's no clear cutting allowed in Slovenia for financial purpose. You are only allowed to clear cut forest if it's caused by a disease or, if the forest is not healthy. This is just one example. But the collaboration of, for example, flood management and landslide management in collaboration with the water sector is still not happening to the level it could, even though they are closely related. And here I'm coming back to the spatial planning or the authority over the land, which I think is the key aspect here. So who has the right to decide what will take place in the forest? Yes, it's the National Forestry Service of Slovenia. The moment we come to the area of the river, we have another authority over this area. And it's so important to connect them that they would work together. And this only depends on individual people who see the solutions and push it through. It's systematically very difficult to find solutions overall. We can bring proposals, but we really need strong people who push it to bring it through. And the same is with nature-based solutions. I know the professionals in Slovenia who have knowledge about this, and I know that they've been trying for 20 years to come through the certain departments to convince them that this works. So it's really looking at the leverage points in the system. Where can we intervene to have this change? Yeah, just a comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Natasha, and thank you, Alexandra. Sorry. I just wanted to say, perhaps instead of breaking up in the breakup rooms, we stay in this room, and because the conversation I think is very interesting for everyone. But I see a lot happening on the chat as well. So going back to the point of nature-based solution, I mean, putting the finance part on the side for a moment, since we still have until 11:15 to discuss. So I see that I really like the comments from Chen Cheng, who said that actually nature-based solution can self-repair and adapt, so it's kind of self-maintained. So I'm not sure about this point OPEX versus CAPEX. And also there is a question from Hakan that asks, have you experienced cases? And I guess this question is really like if you would like to answer this question, and not only Natasha, but all the regions, please feel free to, I guess, raise your hands or intervene directly. So the question is about nature-based solutions. So have you experienced cases where nature-based solutions were not enough and urban redevelopment was necessary, especially in areas built in flood zones due to poor planning? I think this is a very good point. I don't know if somebody has a response to it. Tabea, do you have experience with that? Or if you don't, it's also fine. We
Yeah.
move on. There are many questions.
No, so in the case study we have across the border in France, there is exactly one of those issues where, due to governance challenges and different knowledge also at regional, national, and local level, the flood zoning plans weren't adjusted. And so they allowed development in certain areas that are prone to flood risk. And now, periodically, very, very regularly, these houses get flooded. And so there's no way for them to change where the houses are built. Those houses are built, but what they did now is they implemented grey infrastructure to make to protect the houses. And I think if you sort of think about that on a larger scale, so these are only a few houses, but if you think about it in terms of the hierarchy or sort of the solutions we have available to us when it comes to climate change adaptation, there is always this last resort of redeveloping, retreating. So here in Switzerland, you might have heard about it, but last week we had a big glacier collapse that completely wiped out a whole village. And this is exactly one of those issues which some countries now have to face, like, do they completely redevelop or retreat from a certain area because the risks are just getting too high, or do you find ways to like implement either grey infrastructure or nature-based solutions, and sometimes the hybrid solutions are a really good way to deal with these sort of things. I also saw a comment about landslides. That is a huge issue. We've also been seeing in other case studies torrential rains, the mountains basically come down. I mean, this would be happening in the Julian Alps as well in Slovenia, I assume. There are nature-based solutions available if you fortify the mountain sides by afforesting or making the plant cover more dense. You can prevent those landslides to a certain degree, but then you hit a certain barrier at some point where then you really have to make that decision. I don't know, Natasha, if this is something you've also been sort of thinking about. When do
Yes.
you accept your losses? When do you retreat?
Well, we have a situation. I mean, this what you described is definitely the case in Slovenia, in Gorenjska, but also in other regions. So we had some houses removed. Some people had to resettle. There was no way around this. So yeah, it's a way to adapt. So some landslides can be prevented, but not all. So this is also part of this monitoring system that is so important. I chose today case study the critical infrastructure, not so much the physical one, but more the information one. They're both very important. And yeah, it's all relevant what you said. I agree. I would maybe,
Right.
if I may, I would ask Anya to give a comment on financing, because it's, the money issue is so important here, and it's we have just one word for financing in Slovenian. So taking a credit or getting a non-refundable, funds, it's the same term, but I know in English there too, and it's very distinguished. So maybe Anya has a comment on all of this regarding financing. I would be very interested.
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot that has been said. I had a few points. I think interestingly, Alexandra, I think you've noticed probably that multi-level governance is somehow very connected to finance. And I think one thing that is that we see across regions, we also work with a lot of cities, and there's this issue of different municipal budgets or different regional budget buckets, while at the same time NBS are often offering benefits that can that could contribute to multiple agendas. And I think this is something that is very hard to tap into, but is likely, if done well, something that will allow you to tap more into finance. I think one thing that was interesting that you said, I think if I understood correctly, you finished your presentation with saying that you would like to know how to fit MBS within the existing financial resources. And I think that's the key, because the question is, if you have an MBS that serves flood risk, but also air quality, biodiversity, tourism resilience, can you tap into funding from all of these different municipal or regional budgets even, not only looking at it from the lens of resilience? So it shouldn't be only the environmental ministry that has it on their desk, but also should we get some finance from the Ministry for Tourism or from the Ministry of, I don't know, for that is taking care of air quality or biodiversity in the region. So, but this is a question of finance, but also of this multi-level governance and coordination, and being able to tap into this financing resources is very hard, but is also, from the regional perspective, the most optimal use of finance. So that would be one way to think about it. And the second way to look at it is that I think NBS can be extremely effective financially, especially in the long term. This is not true for every MBS, and it's not true for MBS in every region. So the local context, and I don't know Slovenian context well enough to understand which MBS would be cheap and good and easy to implement and which would be not. But I think looking at MBS not as a side project, but really as a resilience enhancer, and comparing it to grey infrastructure and trying to understand also what Tabea was talking about, this accounting for cost and benefits, looking and comparing, because the truth may be that in certain cases grey infrastructure is the way to go, unfortunately, because the resilience of the people is maybe more important than this in short term, or hybrid infrastructure. But I think looking at MBS not necessarily as this nice green thing to have, but rather, okay, that's a valid solution. How do we look at it next to a technological solution? Is it actually better? Is it better but maybe more expensive? And then you need to reach out for more funding. So I think like looking at it extremely critically will also help you to speak to the organizations that are deploying finance, whether that's public or private sector, because I think that the financing world is harsh, and you need good data and you need good proofs on the fact that things are effective, and especially when we talk with issues such as population resilience, because it's not fun and games anymore, right? Like you have people living there, they need to be protected. Their, I don't know, agricultural output or whatever they're doing needs to be protected. So yeah, I think it's a few things. I think it's understanding which multiple benefits are offered and where can the funding be sourced from, even existing funding or kind of optimization to use multiple buckets. And then integrating the cost benefit analysis, also accounting for avoided costs. That's a little bit of a different topic, but maybe thinking, okay, is there avoided costs? Is there maybe a role of insurers to play? I don't know really the Slovenian insurance sector. But yeah, it's looking at things, I think, yeah, looking at MBS as a resilience enhancement, as a true solution, being honest when it's actually applicable, and trying to use what you already have. Yeah, and then the second thing, I think Alexandra explained it well. I also wanted to mention the LIFE program. I think this is very valid. Yeah, I think these are my main thoughts from your.
Thank you very much. Now going back to cost benefit analysis. So I'm trying to introduce this concept in the area of adaptation, which is like after the floods, everybody speaks about how much it costed us. but to look at individual solutions and weigh them with the cost benefit, we're not that far yet. So the new LIFE project will address this in collaboration with the Faculty of Economy. So they're going to investigate various financial mechanisms and the cost benefit analysis. We will try to do it when we do the action plan for Gorinska region. So I'm just looking at the various methodologies because it's with adaptation, you cannot always just talk about numbers. So you have also multi-criteria analysis and efficiency analysis. But I wanted to ask, you mentioned avoided cost. Is there a methodology for that as well? I would be happy to look at it, to use it as an argument. Because also, when you go to the municipalities, or let's say when you try to talk to the mayors, this is exactly what they want to know. It's the cost benefit. So what do I have of this? Why should I invest in this? And how much it will cost me, and when will I get the return? So yeah. So avoided cost of methodology. Is there a methodology that I can take a look at? Do you maybe have a link? I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with a specific methodology. I know there, I mean, the insurance sector, but also organizations such as the European Environmental Agency or even the World Research Institute, they do provide ways in which, more actually case studies in which they calculated that. I mean, the simplest thing which you can kind of do on your case study already is to just understand how much did you lose.
Okay.
And yeah, I think it's really looking at case studies and at typical events and mapping that, but for sure, and yeah, I don't know a specific model.
Okay.
I do think that probably, I mean, yeah, again, I don't know the insurance sector in Slovenia, but I think that that's maybe a private sector partner that you could look at to collaborate on with this, because they're the ones that are quite advanced in terms of assessing the potential costs, because that's the core of their business. So that would be one idea that I would have. And this cost benefits analysis, I think the key here is that it's very local. So there's different studies. There's studies showing in general that the benefits to cost ratios for adaptation measures globally are between 2:1 and 10:1. Where are you on that scale? I don't know. And I think this is the most growing, yeah, let's say field of research, but it's just that you need to know that for your region, on what you can implement. And I think you're already quite advanced looking at what you've prepared.
Thank you.
Perhaps let me just a quick a quick reaction. I think we could like I think to compute avoided costs, you could either look at the historical losses, but I guess if our data point is 2023, I don't know. But I mean, we could use that, but then we could be a bit more advanced. And you look at longer historical data and then project it in the future with the assumption that climate change is making everything worse. So some of the costs would be higher. But yeah, like I don't want to get into the quantitative and details. I just wanted to I see that there was a comment from Oliver on the chat, so I would invite Oliver to quickly comment, and then I think Alexandra also wanted to reply to something. So perhaps Oliver, would you like to comment quickly on your
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, sure. I feel a lot of it has sort of been mentioned indirectly and in different ways already, but of course, I understand your concerns and recognize them in relation to NBS v grey infrastructure. However, grey infrastructure isn't maintenance free either, as I'm sure you're aware. But it can also, if it's just the financial parts that you're having problems to compare in a cost benefit way, there are also other variables you can make a cost benefit, like on national, local priorities in relation to carbon neutralness, because then the nature-based solutions might be more appealing on that parameter. whereas grey infrastructure will probably increase your footprint, which might add to the national quota or local ones. But again, as Alexandra also spoke into, it depends on who you get in and speak to, because there might be a ministry or even the governing body of a national mission for decreasing carbon emissions. They might be very interested in, oh no, we shouldn't start building lots of grey stuff. There's also other considerations coming from a healthcare sector myself. Grey infrastructure, it promotes heat island effects. There are these things to take into account. And if it's near housing of people, they might be vulnerable. You don't want it to be warmer where they are as well. So where nature-based solutions often bring the temperature down, you can also use it in that sense. So there's a lot of different parameters is all I wanted to really just to contribute.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Alexandra, I think you had some reaction as well. Thanks.
I had one point when Natasha was speaking, then Anya was speaking, and then Oliver, so I have 3 issues, but I will be quickly. Sorry, I will be quick. Thank you, Oliver, about that concrete example about how you can bring 2 stakeholders, which are normally not so happy to collaborate. And this argument is that if you will collaborate with us on something, or you will help us in introducing concrete solution, there is a chance that we will help you in achieving your goals, because at every policy you are having concrete measures, and you have to, at some point, you have to show if it's going okay or not. The problem of Slovenia, and sorry, I love that country, but like every country, it has the problems, is that a government is really ignoring nicely this need of proper systemic evaluation. And even lately, there was connected with different national strategy. There was a comment from OECD that everything is so great and innovative in this industry strategy, but you are not doing serious evaluation. And the government in general has to treat evaluating an impact measurement more seriously. And such a concrete measures, which are not measures, but indicators which are interconnected, like absorption of CO2, which can be connected to concrete measures and actions in one policy, but they are supporting policy which are sitting and they are under different ministry. That is a very good and pragmatic argument to bring Ministry of Climate and Energy and Ministry of Natural Resources together, because they have to prove the same goal. That is one. The second comment is about nature-based solutions still as an innovation. I'm super biased because I'm mainly working with the national government, so I'm trying to absorb their perception of things. So even if they are thinking about stuff in innovative way in declaration, when they start to implement stuff, they are very often a little bit afraid of innovations. And nature-based solutions in our field, of course, it's nothing new, but in general, this kind of approach still needs more recognition. So that's why, as a Climate Kick, we are very often trying to convince our stakeholders, guys, you need to have a portfolio of innovative actions which will bring proper local evidence that those solutions are leading to some effectiveness in resource, fulfilling a different type of goals you are having on the local and national level, etc., etc. So I think that more of the portfolio of small actions which are using in your field, so in adaptation, nature-based solutions, even in a very small scale, but proving that it works, this is exactly something which can inform and influence national policy much more effective than any expert from other country talking, this is so good that you will collaborate and you will have nature-based solutions in adaptation strategy. And the last point is, I believe that the process of creating strategy, so Natasha mentioned that right now the ministry is working on the new strategy. This is the moment when everything starts. If the perspective of the local players, it's not sufficiently present there, the whole strategy, even the most beautiful one, could not be properly implemented when we are moving from strategy to the action plan. So that's why I think that the multi-layer approach starts at the moment when the strategy is is becoming to be created. And this is the moment that it's not only like inviting people from local municipalities to one workshop or to another. It's really to look at the strategic document from the perspective of the local players, not from the perspective of ministries, because ministries are artificially created. The division of spatial planning, energy, climate adaptation, those divisions are locally, they are artificial. At the end, we are trying to make safe space for people, and this perspective only can be secured when we are having all those topics together. So that's why, Natasha, I will come back to you, because I'm extremely interested, how is this your perspective on the process of creating right now the strategy to make sure that the multi-level governance starts over there, not at the end. And sorry for the preaching.
Yes, this is what you're addressing. I'm putting a lot of energy in addressing it myself. So the ministry responsible for national strategy, we are in contact with them, in constant contact. They are very supportive of the two regions who are, the second one will have a public announcement of their strategy now in June. So we have two regions in Slovenia that are part of the mission adaptation that are this year finalizing their strategies. They will both move on to the implementation of an action plan, but what I'm trying to do constantly is to check with the ministries where they're at. So they know what methodology we used. I also informed the LIFE project with this methodology, and they're going to spread it further. And at the same time, I'm constantly checking what methodology will be used at the national level to assess risk and vulnerability assessment, how they're going to proceed. Actually, just last week, I've been in contact with some people, and I got the contacts from all the ministries. So I am doing my stakeholder involvement here to be connected with them and to be on track of this process, because I think this is the key. You need to, and this is the big advantage of Slovenia. It is. So we are not too many people, and you can actually get in contact with the person who's working on a certain topic. If you are able to nurture relationships on a professional level, you can do really a lot with that. So thank you for pointing this out. Yes, these are small leverage points that impact then the whole system, but it's not the whole Slovenia. Yeah, these are two regions now. The others will wait what the others do, and once the law is adopted, they will do their action plans based on the national strategy. That's the process.
Right. So thank you for all the sharing. Is there anyone who would like to share about their experience? Are there similarities? So we discussed about nature-based solution and their benefits. We discussed about the difficulties in proofing to do cost-benefit analysis in order to make the financial case for nature-based solutions. And then we discussed about multi-level governance and the challenges to navigate this system. I wonder if anybody wants to share their point of view, or if we are close to the end of this discussion. Well, if you do have something to share, please raise your hands or write in the chat. A thought that constantly came to my mind during this discussion that I wanted to share with you. So I've been working on a project which is called the Fast Infra Label, which is an initiative which has been initiated by the private market. So we know that infrastructure are always paid for by governments. But we know that under increasing tax pressures, sometimes governments do not have the money to pay for infrastructure. And it happens that infrastructure are in fact a good investments also for the private market. So we are working now on the Fast Infra Label, which is a project which was conceived by a number of private entities, including HSBC and a number of private funds, and they wanted to have access to infrastructure projects which were sustainable. So like we are talking about resilience and adaptive project, but we really touch upon all the different dimension of sustainability, right? And then what I heard the other day from the Asian Development Bank, they were saying that there is no lack of funding. So it's good to hear that from them, but there is a lack of the data. So basically, sometimes they do not know the presence of the project, or they do not know how the project performs, so they don't have the confidence to invest in it. But the funding, to start with, it's not lacking. So this project, which is called Fast Infra Label, which is supported also by Bloomberg, tries to put together these two parties. So development banks and investment funds and private capital on the one hand, and project on the other hand. And I just wanted to share this because it is what I do on a daily basis, and I think it's very relevant. And I think it's comforting when I hear from banks that there is no lack of funding. However, I think we still need to improve on the data side, and as Natasha was mentioning, on the cost-benefit analysis, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so right. This was my sharing. I see there is also a comment on the chat from Alexandra. Right, so about cost-benefit analysis were used. So you, Alexandra, will look at cost-benefit analysis methodologies,
Yes,
or
because
on avoided cost analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was also a request coming from the Minister of Economy in the different sub-project of our deep demo big process. They were asking us and our expert to look for such an analysis. So I will ask my colleagues, and it will be if I will find something interesting, I will send it to you or to Natasha. And I found this comment from Natasha about synchronization of different methodologies between different layers of the policy cake. Super important, because if at every level we are using a little bit different approaches and different logic is behind this synchronization, it's impossible. So yes, Natasha, I'm keeping it in mind. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to, Beatrice, you touched a very important point on financing and funding, which is something that I see Oliver also has a comment, and maybe it's related to this. That's why I'm just putting a question out. So in Slovenia, regarding generally climate adaptation, we are talking about, public financing. And there's almost no talk about private funding of adaptation. It's a kind of a mental block. Like I asked this question, mayors, in the open discussion we had at the public announcement of the strategy, and there was very little answers that we get to this. So I think that mainstreaming of this is something that will be crucial in the future. There is still an understanding that public money will finance all the adaptation because it's responsibility of the state or of the municipality to take care of its citizens. But I see more and more a trend of going towards public, not private funding. So actually giving credits, which is something that we will have to bridge. It's not a common understanding. So for me, if you have examples of opportunities, so, we hear a lot about bankable projects on adaptation. I still don't see it. I mean, we did 2 strategies now, and I don't see bankable projects within this. So if anybody has real examples, how can adaptation project really be bankable or bring money, and to whom and in what way, I would be so happy to hear those examples. Just to convince them, Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Natasha. Right. Right. So I'll need to think a bit farther into this. I don't have the questions ready. Does anybody have one last comment?
I can see that Oliver has the hand up.
Oh, apologize, I didn't see that. Oliver, please.
Yep. Well, I don't know if this might be a bit, well, outside of the topic we've just been speaking about, which of course was very interesting and all about infrastructure and nature-based solutions, but talking on the topic theme, critical infrastructure, I think there's maybe an area where there's taking into consideration how the world looks today, other ways of tapping into to gathering support and attention from ministries or actors that might not normally be more on the climate adaptation aspect. But if you put it as climate resilience or just resilience in general, you might be tapping into something where you can gather more support. Speaking of the critical entities directive coming out, or that is out, it's all about ensuring the resilience of critical infrastructure, and especially given how the geopolitical situation is right now, a lot of ministries and actors and areas are very keen to make sure that their energy systems and water and all these critical infrastructure things keep running, even if someone flicks a switch somewhere or there's some cascading impacts from other industries. And I think maybe the standard way of just talking climate adaptation, you'll get further if you talk about where climate adaptation and climate resilience and resilience aspect overlap, and pushing more forward that aspect. But we don't really have time to change the whole scope of the debate right now. It's just to speak into the critical infrastructure as a term in itself has been defined at EU level now, and it has all these different infrastructure systems, and it's audible at the moment. You have to be compliant to making sure that these infrastructure systems are resilient, and that's for climate aspects, but also for geopolitical aspects. So maybe finding areas where they overlap is also a way to maybe gather more, focus and attention from actors that might normally be on the sidelines in relation to climate adaptation on its own.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Natasha. And thank you all for your contribution. Perhaps I'll give the word back to Climate Kick. Sylvia, will you conclude the session?
I think Sylvia has to leave, so I'll just take it from here.
Thank you, Father.
We just want to make sure that we have some time for you to give us some feedback. I think the session was particularly interesting, to be honest. I thought that the conversation kept going all along, so I really hope this was the same the other way. But we are, as you know, trying a new format this time for this round of IPGs as well. So I'm going to launch a poll, and I'm just going to ask you to fill it in, and please confirm if you see this on the screen popping up, hopefully.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes. Okay. So it's really for us to understand if you're liking this new format that we're testing, and have a little bit of your inputs, as we will have another round of IPGs happening soon, sometime in September, October, around then. And we also want to take a moment to just share with you and I'm going to look for the website, because we have more sessions coming up. Today, sorry, in the afternoon, we have another session on health and well-being, and tomorrow and until Friday, we have a couple more of sessions happening. So you can see this in the link that I just put on the chat. So you can just go to the calendar that you see on the website and register through each of the sessions. You have a description of each session in the link, so you can also just have a look at what region is presenting and what is the topic about. Today in the afternoon, we have Umbria from Italy, and the topic is health and well-being. So we encourage you to join us to any session that you find particularly interesting. And if there's any experience, case study that you would like to share with us from your region, we also, we're also looking for any region's contributions in this sense. So please also let us know. Some of our P2R regions have already received the form, so If there are any volunteers for this, just do express it, and we'll reach out to you. And I see some answers. We have still, I think, a few more to go, because I only see a couple there. So if you can just please fill the survey in while we're here.
I think I by accident closed it. Could you post it again?
No worries,
Yeah.
Natasha. This is
Okay.
just you closing your screen, but I see it, so I have to actually
Okay.
close it. I have the power of the poll here. No worries. But I see some answers coming in, so we'll just wait a couple of minutes until we have everyone's. And thank you very much for having joined the conversation. Thank you, Natasha, for the presentation, for keeping also the conversation alive, for all the questions that you brought to the discussion, and to our experts, Beatrice, Tabea, well, I think everyone, Alexandra, Tintin, and I think I'm missing Anya, right? And then everyone in the room, I think it was very active. So thank you for your active participation, which was really making the session as it was. And we see you in the next one in the afternoon, hopefully.